Selling on social media. One of the most scary phrases that I can speak on this broadcast, but I know that you want to know more about this because recently I sent out a survey to all of you, and 75% of you said that out of sales and marketing, starting creating a podcast, and a couple other categories we had, the number one thing that you wanted to know more about was sales and marketing. And the good news is we're going to dive into how you can sell on social media the right way. We're going to talk about selling from the heart, selling with authenticity, social selling, and how you can incorporate it into your own business strategy. Because no matter who you are, you've got a product that you're selling. We're all salespeople, okay? And if we say we're not salespeople, then often we're not selling, right? And sales is the lifeblood of your business. And in this conversation with our expert today, Bill McCormick, we're going to talk exactly about the right way to sell on social media. Before I introduce you to Bill, you know the fee for the show. When you take away one thing or maybe even two things from this conversation that you can use immediately in your business, immediately in your social strategy, then all that we ask is that you share this show with just one other person. One person who could use this message the most, another business owner, entrepreneur, sales professional that will help them, because you're the reason that we've grown the way that we have over the last year and a half. I can't believe it's been over a year and a half since we started this broadcast, because you are the best part of the Be Better team. So without further ado, let's talk to our man of the hour, Mr. Bill McCormick. And for those who do not know Bill is committed to bringing trust, genuineness, and authenticity back to the sales profession. He is known as the authentic social seller. He has witnessed firsthand the lack of trust and authenticity that is rampant on social media. Bill has coached and presented to sales teams globally and is zealous in his pursuit to return trust, respect, and authenticity back to the sales profession. Bill, we need you more than ever at this time in the world, my friend. Thanks so much for being here and joining the broadcast.
Hey, Brandon, thanks so much for having me, and to all those folks out in the Be Better land. Hey, here's a card for you, card for you, card for you, card for you, card for you. Take them
Always
all.
Networking.
Yeah, we can help companies just like you. You know, how many times have we been in the networking space when somebody's come up and thrown their cards in our face and said, hey, we can help you, without even talking? And unfortunately, that, we kind of roll our eyes at that, but that's what's happening all over social right now. In fact, I guarantee you, before we get off this call, I'm going to have at least one connection request from someone who's going to try to sell me or pitch me. It's just happening all over. So I'm really excited to have this conversation and talk about this. So where do you want to start?
So I think it's funny you say that, because I think in the last 3 minutes after starting this show, I've gotten about 3 messages on LinkedIn telling me that I can get infinite leads and the holy grail of business growth and success and overnight riches. And I'm being promised all these things on my inbox every single day. And for those people listening, you're looking at your inbox and you see these messages and you're like, oh my God, the last thing I want to be is this person who is cold outreaching with this sales message. And I remember, Bill, I actually replied to one of these people. I replied to all of them because I'm just curious if your services and products. I'm curious, how are your results with this? And a few people have gotten back to me. One said that their entire business model is off this cold outreach, but I've built my business to where it is right now, which I will deem in my past 3 years of doing this as successful to my standards, and it continues to grow. But I'm not doing this cold outreach. And one thing I know, and I think it's the same for everyone listening, is they do not want to be that person in the inbox just cold outreaching. But some people see that and they're like, if that's sales, I want nothing to do with it. So what would you say to those people, Bill, who say to you, Bill, I want to get better at sales, but I'm just not a sales person? What do you say to people like that?
I'd say, yes, you are. Everyone is a salesperson. Listen, if you're a parent, you sell a bedtime, you sell a healthy eating plan, you sell, going to bed early and taking a bath. You do that. If you're a spouse or a partner of someone, you sell where to go out to dinner. You sell buying that new thing. You sell all the time. If you're an employee, you sell your boss on something. If you're a boss, you definitely sell your employees on a course of action on culture. If you're a parent of teenagers, that's more of hostage negotiation. That's probably another podcast. But listen, we're all selling something. And if you're a business owner, you sell. You have to sell your company. You have to sell the product or service, because if you don't sell, without sales, nothing happens in our economy. And so we have to come to that understanding. And what we have to do is divorce ourselves from the idea of what a salesperson is. Because if you go back, if you look, most of us think of the car salesman. Brandon, what do I have to do today to get you in this car? And if that doesn't work, then the sales manager comes out. And so if you're a salesperson for cars, I apologize, but that's just it. Listen, the Edelman Trust Barometer, they do it every year, and almost every year, the second to the last category of trust, meaning the second to the least trustworthy person, is, guess what? A car salesman, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, as salespeople, we're lumped in with them. So it's by association. So second to the last, who the last group of people, Brandon, are that on the trust, take a guess. Least trustworthy vocation, occupation. Actually, lawyers are just above car salesmen.
Okay.
Just under car salesmen, the very last, are politicians. Go figure. So we're not in good company there. and so we have to change that. And especially when it comes to social, what we have to realize is, Todd Capone has a podcast called the History of Sales, and he goes back and he checks and he goes into all the history behind sales. And one of the things he talks about is how, as salespeople, we break or we misuse every great technology that's ever come around. The phone, caller ID was developed to thwart salespeople. What a lot of people don't understand, if I get the story correctly, it was actually invented by a doctor, because doctors would be at home eating their dinner. They would have to answer the phone. This is way back in the olden days when there was a phone on the wall. There were no answer machines. There was no caller ID, long time ago, dinosaur age. And they had to answer the phone, because if the hospital was calling, they had to answer. The salespeople figured that out. So when would they call? The doctors, the pharmaceutical companies, the medical device reps. So this doctor said, I've got to figure out a way. And so developed caller ID, but that wasn't even good enough. Then the do not call registry had to be invented. Fast forward to email, great tool for salespeople to use, misuse it to the point where spam filters had to be developed and invented. And then President Bush had to sign the Canned Spam Act. Now we fast forward and we're to LinkedIn days. And now people are using automation and they're misusing it, because, listen, almost all automation on LinkedIn violates LinkedIn's terms of use and can get your profile shut down. Yes. But they're doing it. And LinkedIn now is having to enter in and put limits. They just recently, probably about 6 months ago, limited the amount of connection requests you can send in a week to about 100. I say about because it's actually a formula of how many you have outstanding, how many people have said they don't know you and rejected, and then how many you're sending. And I know several people that have recently been put in quote unquote LinkedIn jail because they're using automation that's sending out hundreds of connection requests a week. So you don't want to be those people. So what you want to do is you want to sell authentically. So I'm a part of a company called Selling from the Heart. It's a book by Larry Levine. It's a podcast where you can find it on any place where Brandon has his copy. And if anybody wants a copy, just reach out to me. I'm happy to send you one. But it's all about who we are as people, because a good human will be a good salesperson, whether they think they're in sales or not. And to do that, though, we have to really do the hard work on ourselves, figure out why we're doing this, figure out what our goals are and what we want to achieve. And hopefully you want to better humanity. You just don't want to put dollars in your pocket, because if you're wanting to just put dollars in your pocket and you're in sales, you're not going to last. You're going to burn out very quickly, and you're going to hurt people in the process for sure.
You're going to hurt people, and you're going to hurt your reputation along with your LinkedIn account or wherever you're selling. Because let me tell you guys, even with that person who replied to me in the messages and said, Oh, well, Brandon, this is the number one way that we get sales. Our business is run off of this automation. Well, that might help you short term, and you might be very successful short term. You might have a six-figure business, even a seven-figure business for a year or two, but then algorithms change, things change. But the number one thing is your reputation is what is being hurt the most. People begin to know you as the person who just messages and messages. And I'll comment on things on LinkedIn now. Like, one big rule of thumb is to find the 5 to 10 people in your industry who have your target audience. Follow those people and engage with those people's comments in an effort not to just sell, but to actually add value and help other people. When you said that, it's about changing what we think a salesperson is in our own mind, not the car salesman approach, but the approach of sales is helping people to solve a problem that they have. When we approach it in that way and we're laser focused on how can I add more value? How can I truly help people to solve this problem? What can I do today in order to help my audience get from where they are to where it is they want to be? That is sales, because inevitably that leads to real messages of people asking you, hey, can you help me with this? How can you help me? But I'll comment on people's posts and those top influencers that I was just talking about, and I'll get connection requests. And I'm looking at their headline and it's like lead generator or copywriter or storyteller telling you how to write good stories. I'm sure they're great people, but I know the intention, and I accept all of them, by the way, until they message me that cold message. Some of them are good, by the way. I will say there are approaches to cold message that can be very useful. And I'm sure we're going to get into the strategies itself, but some people send me a voice message and they say, hey, Brandon, I looked through your profile. I noticed you do this, this, and this. I see this as your experience. This was really cool. This is one thing that I would change, Brandon, in order to enroll more people. Again, just wanted to stop by and give you a tip. I know one guy, his name is Swagatam or Swagatom. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, Swag, but we've been connected for a long time on LinkedIn. And he actually sent me a Loom video of him going through my funnel on my website to my products and my digital courses, showing me, Brandon, I would switch this one thing and this will get you this much more in sales just based on the results that others like you have gotten in the past. And I made those tweaks and he helped me, and I didn't pay him a dime to do that, but now he's a friend, and now he's the only Facebook advertisement person that I'll ever send people to. So it's about knowing the right way to reach out and connect with people. So let's dive right into it, Bill. But the first thing I want to ask you, because you have a very curious history. You, for many years, were a supervisor at a dispatch location. Like when people call 911, right? You would supervise all the people who would send people out to help them. So you've always been in a service role. And then as of, I think it said 2015, you moved from that into working with companies and corporations and teams. Like, how did you transition from that long career and doing what you're doing with being a supervisor to being in the sales world?
Yeah, so I love being a 911 dispatcher. It was great work, and I had done it since 2002. I had started, and then in 2013, so it was 9 years ago, right now, in the period we're in right now, my wife worked for a very successful print and promotional products company that was in the Albany, New York area. It was just her and her boss, a two-person team. He was the overpromiser. She was the over-deliverer. She was the one that answered everyone's questions. When they had a problem, they called Sue, and she took care of it. Well, her boss died suddenly. He had cancer, but he passed away sooner than anyone thought. He wanted her to take the company, take it to the next level. They had some discussions. Unfortunately, nothing was ever put in writing. And so we were in the midst 9 years ago, right now, back and forth with his family, who had never been involved in the business up to this point. And after 9 weeks, they decided to keep the company. And we had told them, if you're not going to have a place for Sue, we're going to start our own company. And so they had gone and hired some people to take her place. And so we went out and started, our own print and promotional products company. We needed a salesperson. I had sales in my background from like the 80s and 90s. Yeah, I'm that old. And but I had never been into that schwarmy kind of sales role. I was like, listen, this is my value. This is what I can provide for you. If you want it, great. If you don't, I'm on to the next person. That didn't go over well in the 80s and 90s. I didn't do well in sales, but I started in this role with my wife, and we quickly discovered that LinkedIn was the place where we could find our clients. In fact, 30% of our print and promotional product business is in Bermuda. And one of our largest clients found my wife on LinkedIn because she had left. And we all know, when you leave a company, you leave your email, you leave all that there. How can people get a hold of you? Well, now they can get a hold of you on LinkedIn. They can follow you on LinkedIn. They can see you. So I call it like the giant water cooler. And so Yvonne found Sue, and it led to a great connection. And up until the pandemic, we had been going to Bermuda on a regular basis. But what happened was I had all these networking folks saying to me, hey, we know you use LinkedIn. Can you teach us how? So first I was doing it for free. Then a friend of mine who was a web developer said, hey, we could do a website. We could go in business together. I'll manage the website. You create these videos to train people. We'll sell the videos. Great idea. We took a little longer than we should have, and it just didn't do well at all. And but it got me into that training mode. A bank in Bermuda approached me. Hey, we know you do LinkedIn training. Can you teach our sales team how to sell with LinkedIn? That led me to forming a partnership with Bryn Tillman, who's one of the top LinkedIn trainers. I joined her company and we started working together. And what I found out was, while I love LinkedIn training, I love sales training even more. And she introduced me to Larry Levine from Selling from the Heart. Larry and I had a couple of conversations and we just bonded. We just became really good friends. And so at the end of this year of 2021, as we were coming to the end, I was looking to make some changes. And he said, hey, listen, we believe that Selling from the Heart is not just a book. It's not just a podcast. It's a movement of restoring authenticity back into the sales vocation. And a movement has to be more than a couple of people. And so they had brought on one other trainer, and they decided to bring me on as a coach and trainer. And as they say, the rest is history. I started with them in February, and I've just been enjoying talking to people and marrying together this world of social and the world of selling from the heart and the world of authenticity, because it's so important that as we're interacting with people virtually, we do it the same way as we would do it as in the face-to-face. I started out by throwing cards at everyone and said, we all know people that go into a networking room and they do that, but and we roll our eyes at it, but that's what people are doing on LinkedIn. And you brought it up and you said, you ruin your reputation. If you cold call me, Brandon, I'm going to see a phone number. I may see a company name. Okay, I'm not going to pick up. If I don't recognize it, I'm not picking up. If you send me a cold email, I see your name, I see a company name, but I usually don't read them. I know what they are. If you cold outreach me on LinkedIn, I see your picture, I see your company name, I see more about you, and it makes it more personal. And so, I'd submit that probably that person that said to you that that's how they get most of their stuff, they're probably selling that service. Okay. What you'll notice is that you won't see a lot of, at least I'm noticing, I'm not seeing a lot of lead generation in titles anymore, because I think we figured out that lead generation equals spam. And so now they're calling themselves LinkedIn coaches. and then you look and you see they've been in the position and they've only been on LinkedIn for like 6 months, but they're a LinkedIn coach.
Oh man.
So, be really careful who you take advice from on LinkedIn. And when it comes to social, I say that LinkedIn is a lot like an American football team. An American football team isn't one team. It's actually 4 teams, right? It's the offensive team, the defensive team, the special teams, and then the often forgot coaching team. Well, LinkedIn isn't one platform. It's 4 platforms, right? It's job hunting and recruiting. That's how LinkedIn got its start. It's marketing. Think company pages. Think the marketing department marketing products and services on a company page. Then it's networking and sales. That's really what we're talking about today. And then the 4th one is the often forgot training group. There are people like me that just do LinkedIn training. And so when you're starting out using LinkedIn, what is the reason? What are the goals for why you want to use it? And then find the people, just like you talked about, finding the people within your industry that are really the influencers that you can listen to, that you can follow, that you can see and talk to and engage with. But also look at the people who are doing LinkedIn training and doing it well. But you have to take whatever they're teaching you and put it within the framework of what you're doing. What I tell anyone I coach is, if you have something that's working for you, keep doing it. Just be open to other ideas. About 4 or 5 years ago, I was in, I started out by LinkedIn training in the promotional products world because that's what I came out of. And we were in a conference and I was teaching and a guy raised his hand. And he said, do I have to do this? And I said, what do you mean? He says, well, I cold call now. And I said, how's that going for you? He says, I have about a 65% answer rate and I have about an 85% appointment rate from that. I went, don't stop.
Yeah.
You figured out something that works for you, do it, but be open to this other idea. My guess is, this is several years ago, but my guess is around March or April of 2020, that probably didn't work as well for him. So he probably had to start something different. So we have to be open to new ideas. I dislike echo chambers.
Yeah.
If you get into a group of people that are always saying the same thing, then get some other advice. So, that's what's very important. We have to realize that and treat the digital space the same as the face-to-face. You would never go up to someone in a networking room and just pitch them just right away. What would you do? You'd have a conversation.
Yeah.
Hey, Brent, and remember, when you're having a conversation, we go all the way back to Think and Grow Rich. What's the most important thing? The other person. They are. Nobody cares about you. Nobody cares about your product. Nobody cares about your service. What they care about is themselves.
Yeah.
And so approaching them that way, hey, so tell me a little bit about you, and being curious, that will start conversations that may lead to an opportunity for you to say, wow, Brandon, so tell me a little bit more about that. Oh, that reminds me of a company we work with just like yours. And this is what happened. That leaves an opportunity for you to say, so Brandon, I'm curious, would you be open to having another conversation to see how we may be able to help you in the same way? And if you're not, that's great. That's fine.
I love that. And I want to dive more into that right now with you.
Great.
And I love what you said about if something's working for you right now, awesome. Like continue doing what's working. But at the same time, look at these other options and realize this is the future of what we're all moving to. And LinkedIn is like a game. And it's important because sometimes I get too into the game of LinkedIn and it's fun. Like I have fun when I go on LinkedIn. I make a post, I get the dopamine hit of people engaging with it and commenting on it. And I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome. Sometimes I forget the outcome of why I'm there in the first place. And having that end in mind is super important. And I want to talk about what you're talking about right now, the correlation between networking and sales, because let me tell you something that impresses me about you, among many things. I love your energy. I get the sense of genuineness from you and authenticity. And just for everyone listening, this is my second conversation with Bill. We talked for maybe 30 to 40 minutes the first time we talked, and it was the same thing one-on-one with Bill as the way we're talking right now to a group of people. And Bill, we were introduced from a mutual friend of ours, Kevin Manny. And Kevin's an incredible business person down in the Hudson Valley and just another great human being. And he said, Brandon, you have to meet Bill. I talked to Bill. Now we're on this conversation together. And who knows what opportunities will arise from this conversation. We're going to help a ton of people, but maybe one out of the 100,000 people will be like, you know what? I want to talk more with Bill. And then Bill will talk to someone there and network with them. And he'll send them his book. And then Bill will be known as the guy who sells from the heart. So this correlation between networking and sales, while you might not get that instant sale that we think happens, it's what happens down the line. Because I was very much that person, Bill, where my coach, before I worked with a coach, I wanted to work with companies, and I started my business in 2019, and I wanted to speak with sales teams. And I would send cold messages to the vice presidents or the CEOs of sales companies, locally, Saratoga, Capital Region. And I got nothing back from those. Like saying, hey, I was wondering if I'm giving a presentation on goal setting when it comes to sales. I was wondering if you bring outside speakers in, stuff like that. I got nothing because I was going just right for it. I was going right for the close, right for the ask. If I was at a networking event with these people, would I walk up to them and say, hey, I'm giving a presentation on goal setting when it comes to sales teams. Would you like me to come in and give that talk to your team? They'd be like, well, Brandon, you don't even know if we need that. Number one. Number two, we don't know who you are. Number three, why you over somebody else? And then there's many other factors that go into that. And my coach said, Brandon, would you go up to somebody at a cocktail event and do the same thing that you did as you did on LinkedIn? And I was like, no, it'd be very different. I would ask them about them and learn about them, like you just said, Bill. And he's like, then why aren't you doing that on social media? And I was like, My mind
Yeah.
was blown. And another sales expert, Sarah Phillips, said the same thing. She's like, you have to treat the LinkedIn inbox as if you were at a cocktail event with these people, right? And it has to be the same way. Get them onto a networking conversation so you can actually get to know them and meet them. And it's not always about the short-term wins. It's about the long-term relationships that are built from those
Yeah.
conversations that you're having.
I can't agree any more with that. And you know, we talk about cold outreach. I don't think there's any instance to do cold outreach on LinkedIn. And the reason is because if your user, if the person that if they're a prospect and you want to connect with them, they have a profile. Look at the profile. I can't tell you how many times I get connection requests with no personal note at all. And we could go on and on. We could have a whole nother episode of this talking about whether to send a note or whether to not, and the stats and all that stuff. I always send a note, and you should also. But the key is that it's personal. It's not a copy and paste that you've done. It's not, I'm going to send out this blast message to 500 VPs of sales and hoping that I get 5 that accept my connection request. So what happens is I'll get a connection request with no note at all. I always send back a reply. This is my reply. This is about the only kind of automation I do on LinkedIn. It's a pre-described message that says, hey, Brandon, thanks for the invite to connect. I typically only connect with people I've either met in person or have had engagement with here on LinkedIn. Can you tell me what it was about my profile that triggered the connection request? 90% of the time, they haven't even looked at my profile. I'll get a profile view right after that. And then they'll say, oh, because you sell authentically, or some BS. Or they'll say, hey, I heard you on Brandon's Be Better podcast. Great. I'll connect with them.
Wow.
But if you look at someone's profile, you can find out information about them. You can see that I'm an alumni of SUNY Empire State. Didn't graduate, but I'm an alumni. Just had someone recently reach out to me about that. So that's great. You can look and see content that they've created. Go and engage on your content. I guarantee you that if you engage on my content, I will accept your connection request all day long, because that strokes my ego. We shouldn't be into it. Well, we shouldn't be into it for that, but we are.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the dopamine hit. And as Mark Hunter, the sales hunter, says, you can't take likes and clicks to the bank, right? What you want to do is move it to a conversation. So think of that in mind. You're not trying to gather, or, it's not a game of gathering business cards. And if you're just connecting with anybody and everybody, that's like gathering business cards. You go to a networking event, you really don't want to talk to people. So you go and kind of meet them and you get a card from everyone. You take them home and what do? You
throw them away.
Or you rubber band them. They go in your desk, they go in your and then nothing ever happens. Right. So the same thing happens with connection requests. You connect with all these people, but there's no other. Are you sending a follow-up message? Are you sending a welcome message? Hey, Brandon, thanks so much for agreeing to connect with me. I'm so happy to have you as part of my network. Hey, just curious, would you be open to a 15-minute or 30-minute coffee call just so we can find out a little bit more about each other? If you're not, no worries. Or, hey, I saw you post about XYZ. I'm very interested in that. I'd love to have a conversation with you about that. Being really, really curious. The more curious you are about the other person, the more they're going to want to talk to you.
Yes, that's right. Learn, be more interested in the other person than you are about making that person interested in you. It goes back to what you mentioned, How to Win Friends and Influence People, which is the first personal development book I've ever read. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe books like this exist, because it changed everything I knew about sales. I've been in sales since I was 18. I'm 28 now. And, there wasn't training when I joined sales. It was, here's the product. This is the functions, the features, the accessories. Now just go talk to people and get them what they ask you for. Right.
And I'll just say that there's not a lot of training about what we're talking about right now. Even now, how many years later? So you were 18, so that was probably 5 years ago, right?
Thank you very much. 10 years ago.
Okay. Well, yeah. 18 was a long time ago for me. But listen, what we find is we're talking to different sales leaders, VPs of sales, CROs, and trainers, is that they do a really great job teaching their sales team on products and services. Here's the bells and whistles. This is what you should promote. They even do a great job on sales tactics, but those tactics are, discovery, and here's how you close, and the BANT, and, around those. but there's not a whole lot of training, if any at all, on how to just have a conversation.
Yeah.
You know, what happens is, as salespeople, we come into a sales call with a sales process, and we try to take the client and fit them into our sales process when we don't realize they have a buying process.
Yeah.
And that's what we should be going after. In his book, and I have it here somewhere on my very, very messy desk, I highly recommend everyone read The Perfect Plan by Don Barden. And he interviewed, I don't know how many top 1% sales leaders, and came up with a number of startling statistics. But one of the things is that when we do a presentation, 10 minutes after the presentation, the client or prospect only retains about 6% of that information.
Wow.
10 minutes later. But you know what they remember 100% of? How we made them feel.
Man.
Right. So if we can start with empathy, if we can start with, hey, Brandon, how are you doing? What's going on with you? We can be curious about them and find out more about them. They're going to remember that. And so, you know, I would encourage sales leaders, especially, look at your sales process and see how much curiosity is in that. How much time is in there for the salesperson to find out more about their client. And if you have clients, go to them and say, hey, I'm curious, what do you think are the top qualities of a good salesperson? Right? If you ask those questions, you're going to find out it's probably going to be more about that they care about me, that they care about helping me, not that they have the best widget, not that their price is the best, or not that they have the best customer service. Here, listen, everybody says that.
Yeah.
Right. So how are we differentiating ourselves? That's a big key also.
Oof, that's powerful. Everyone listening, like, go back and listen to that again and again the last few minutes, because it's just so true. The whole idea that we have a sales process, but it's not about our sales process. It's about how that other person buys, how that other person makes decisions. And that whole idea of people are going to buy sometimes based off of what they need, right? If they need a new car, they're going to go there and buy a car. It probably won't matter who they deal with. As long as that person's not terrible, they're probably going to buy a car if they already knew that they wanted one. But for those people who aren't dynamos, and they walk in and they're like, you know, I'm not quite sure what I want, and I'm not quite sure if this is the place that I want to be, then their buying process matters more than anything else that you can do. So realizing that and understanding what personality type is this person, like, how are they engaging? How are they interacting? Are they a fast talker? Or are they a slow talker, right? Are they someone who needs to think a lot about the decision, or are they making decisions quickly? And do you need to go along that wavelength with them? Understanding them, understanding how they make decisions is so powerful. Now, I want to ask you, because a lot of people listening are service providers, and they might be trainers, they might be speakers. They also want to go into the corporate world and work with the corporate team, the leadership team, whatever it might be. So let me ask you this first. Who do you love to work with most, Bill? Like, who is your ideal client when you're working with companies, corporations?
Sales leaders, typically with teams of 10 or more, that the salesperson is responsible for the whole sales cycle. So, you know, we're not talking, they have a team of BDRs or SDRs that are backing them up. You know, it's me. I've got to go out. I've got to find my leads. I may get some inbound from a website or from, you know, from the company, but I'm responsible for making contact. I'm responsible for having that discovery call, for making that proposal, for closing the deal. So we typically talk with VPs of sales, chief sales officers, chief revenue officers, that kind of. Once in a while, we'll work with some training development folks, but the sales team has got to be involved, because that's really who we're training and who we're working with.
I love that. Okay, very cool. So a lot of people are going to relate to this when they hear what we're talking about right now. So let's say that you have a company on your radar. All right, you're outreaching now, right? And you're looking to create new opportunities. You're using LinkedIn for this. Okay, let's assume that, because that's what we've talked about so far. How do you begin the process of helping? How do you begin the process of getting in front of that prospect and entering their world, and going from the beginning to the enrollment of that client into your services? What does the process look like?
Great question. I send them a blank connection request, and they accept. I send them a pitch deck. No, obviously that's not what happens. So what I do is I look at their profile. I start with that. typically that's how I find them. So they've come across my feed in some way, or I'm doing a search and maybe I'm doing VPs of sales in information technology or in manufacturing. And I find a few people, I take a look, I do some research on the company, and I look at the size of the sales team. I find out, does this meet my ICP, my ideal client profile? And now I'm going to attempt an engagement with them. What I'll do is I'll look at their profile. So that's an engagement right there, right? Because they are going to get a notification. Bill McCormick viewed your profile. Hopefully that will encourage them to look at mine. That gives me an opportunity for an engagement. I'm going to look at content that they've created. And if I can authentically, this is key, if I can authentically engage in that content, I will. I won't like a post that says something that I disagree with. I won't comment on a post like some people do. Great post.
Yeah. Yeah. With no substance.
Wow. Most of the time when you see that, that could very well be automation. There's actually some automation out that does that. Or, you have to know your audience, and, like the Merrill Lynch people, if you're like Merrill Lynch, their rules are so strict. Like that's the kind of comment they can only do. So, you have to play that out. But so I'll look for an opportunity to engage on that post. So now if that works out, now I've got some context to send a connection request. Hey, Brandon, I saw your post on the crisis that's happening right now in, boy, I always have trouble with this one phrase, not operations, but what are we, logistics, the logistics issues right now, supply chain, that's the word, issue with that right now. I really found it insightful. I would appreciate it if you would connect with me here on LinkedIn. And what I'll say is take a look at my profile, and if you think it makes sense, let's connect.
Cool.
I want to put the ball back in your court, right? I want you to connect because you want to. Now, when they connect with me, I send a welcome message. Hey, Brandon, thanks so much for being a part of my network. I really appreciate it. Please let me know if there's any way that I can be of service to you, Bill. Then I may wait a couple of days and find something that would be of value to you. If you're in manufacturing and I find some articles on supply chain, I might come back and say, hey, Brandon, I know, your post the other day about supply chain. I found a great article in Forbes about XYZ. Would love to share it with you. Let me know if you'd like it. I don't send it right away. I don't spam you with it. I give you the opportunity. You may accept it, you may not. What am I doing? I'm looking for an opportunity that I can say, Brandon, we've been back and forth here a couple of times. It would be great to jump on a call and just talk about our business a little bit. Or we can talk about supply chain issue a little bit. I'm looking for an opportunity to have a conversation with you that can be real and genuine and authentic.
Yeah.
And when I'm on that conversation, I just want to know about you. I don't want to say, hey, so yeah, Brandon, so I started in sales in 1987. And, I don't want to give you and talk about me the whole time. I want to shut up. I want to ask you some questions. How are you doing? How did the pandemic, we're in the last month of the second quarter. So, right. So we're coming up to the half year mark, or if depending on your fiscal year, maybe coming up the end of the year. How are you doing from last year? How is this quarter? How are your sales this year from pre-pandemic, right? I want to ask some business substance questions to show that we're on a peer level, that I'm thinking the same way as you. And I might offer a book. Hey, have you ever heard of Larry Levine? A lot of people have. I'd love to get a copy of Selling from the Heart. Can I have your mailing address? I'm looking for those kind of opportunities to provide some value, to show you that I know what I'm talking about. I'm not looking for an opportunity to pitch you.
Yeah.
Not at all. I may be looking for an opportunity where you say something and it triggers a story that I have about a client we've worked with in the past that I can bring up. And at the end of the call, I may say, hey, Brandon, this has been great. We're coming up to the end of the hour. I want to be really respectful of your time. But listen, you mentioned something about XYZ, and I told you we were able to help that company when I told you that story. Hey, just curious, would you be open to having another conversation where we might talk about how we might be able to help you the same way? And listen, if you're not open, no big deal, no harm, no foul. 90% of the time it's, Wow. Yeah. I'd love to have a conversation about that.
Now, let me ask you this, because I'm very much a step-by-step, what's the word? I'm very,
Linear,
yeah, I am very linear in the way that I think about the process.
as many salespeople are.
So let's recap what we have, because I think what you just mentioned, if people only listen to this part about the outreach and the correct way to do it, then they've taken away a ton of value, because you and I are very similar in this. You go to the person's page, you find content if it makes sense, right? If you resonate with it and it's genuine, comment on it, engage on it, like it, feed them their dopamine that they want, but also engage in a cool conversation on that post itself. Then send a connection request. Don't make it just a copy and paste. Like, actually type the connection request, because you never know this person.
Make it personal. Make it
Yes.
personal. And this is the difference. Think of a copy and paste connection request as junk mail, and a personalized connection request as a letter from grandma. They're both mail, but they don't have the same weight.
You're right.
You throw away the junk mail, you treasure and keep the letter from grandma forever. And that's when people say, oh, well, the stats show that if you send a message to someone that you're better off not sending. They're comparing it to junk mail. They're comparing it to that. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
No, it's absolutely true, because you'll get a letter in the mail now, and some of these dealerships really have this thing down to a science, where this letter that you get looks like they wrote your address and your name. And it's like, whoa, is this real? And I'm calling my wife over to look at it, and I'm like, Bree, is this real? And we're trying to feel the indent of the pen, and you can't. So it's like, there it is. It's fake, right? But imagine if it was real. Right? You would open that letter because it was actually handwritten. And still to this day, I do that. It's the same thing for a connection request, right? Everything in the physical world translates over to the social plane.
Most definitely.
So now you're engaging, you're adding value with this individual. You're not immediately sending them your pitch deck, your cold message. You are sending them things that are relevant to them. And for those listening too, by the way, that could be a podcast that you've done. I've had several companies that I work with, and I did the same thing. And this was over the course of 30 days. I would send them a podcast episode. I did an episode with Bob Berg, the author of The Go-Giver, and excellent book, by the way, for everyone listening. And it's on the channel if you want to go check it out. But I send that to a lot of people because I love that episode. It was just, I took so much away from that. And there's so many episodes where I have, but I'll send my favorite episodes to people, and I'll send them episodes of other podcasts, and I'll send them a couple books I like based on the issue they might have mentioned in the post that I engaged on. So adding value, thinking about the other person, talking about the other person. My question is, when and what do you say in order to transition it from the inbox to a real life conversation?
Yeah. So this is where it comes into art. It's not science. It's not, you do these 3 steps, and then the 4th step, you do this. And in fact, even when you're engaging, some people might say, yeah, but my ideal clients aren't on LinkedIn. My ideal clients. Well, so then you can go to email. You can look at their Facebook. You can look at their company page. You can do research on their company. Look for awards that they've received. That gives you an opportunity to connect with them in some way. When I say connect, I don't necessarily mean just in LinkedIn, but connect with them via email or pick up the phone. Yes, the phone, you can still use the phone. So what I'm looking for is an opportunity that I can say to them, hey, Brandon, I love our go back and forth on your post. Would you be open to, right, putting the ball right back to them? Would you be open to a 30-minute conversation? Would love to get your thoughts on trust in this in your sales process. And what am I looking for? I'm looking to say, hey, I'm talking to a lot of VPs of sales, and we're talking about trust and how you're building trust in the sales process. How are you training your sales team to develop trust? Well, we're not. Okay. How are you seeing trust play out? And so, I'm looking for, on the back of my business card is our trust formula, which I'll hold up here. So we believe that trust is equal to authentic relationship and meaningful value. If you can provide authentic relationship and meaningful value to people, you begin to develop trust. And then there's multiplying factors, right? There's the IE, which is inspirational experience. And then another multiplying factor is DH, which is disciplined habits. So most of that can happen right on LinkedIn. You can develop an authentic relationship, and you can provide meaningful value. Here's the thing. Value is in the eye of the prospect, not yours. Okay. I can think, like, I used to talk a lot on LinkedIn about automation because, like, it's bad. You shouldn't be doing it. You're kicked off. Here's the thing. My clients could care less. could care less about automation. So I was falling flat, right? I had to find out what they cared about, which was prospecting and getting to more clients. So you can provide meaningful value and develop those authentic relationships. And then you can provide inspirational experience. Part of the inspirational experience is when we get together on the phone and we talk, or via Zoom, or wait, in person? Like, we can actually meet in person now. You know, how is that an inspirational experience? Make it all about them. When they remember, if you do a presentation, they're going to remember 6% of what you tell them 10 minutes after they walk out. They're going to remember 100% how you make them feel. So how are you making people feel? And so that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for an opportunity to say to the prospect, hey, I've enjoyed our conversation via DM. Would you be open to having a conversation, 30-minute conversation via Zoom? Would love to pick your brain about this further. Would love to pick your brain about trust. Would love to pick your brain about how you're utilizing XYZ in your process. Whatever it is, you're looking for an opportunity, but it's got to be genuine. And when we get on the phone, if we start by, hey, Brandon, so thanks so much for this. So, hey, I'm curious, what training companies are you using for your sales? Oh, yeah, you know what? They're okay. But listen, can I tell you why we're better? And then if you go into it, believe me, their eyes are going to glaze over.
Yep.
And pretty soon they're going to go, oh, hey, Bill, I just got this important text. I got to go. Thanks. Bye.
Yes.
Done. And
burn the bridge.
They're going to be gone. And they're going to be like, and they're going to tell other people, don't talk to that guy. That guy, Bill McCormick. Oh my God. He got me on a call and it was a call that would never end. Like, you know, because most people are polite and they'll sit there and go and they'll answer your questions. And then when you get off and they'll say, okay, yeah, so yeah, send me some pricing. I'd be very interested to see that. And I'll get right back to you. And then it's the Genesis song, no reply at all. You never, they ghost you and you never hear from them again.
Yeah.
And, so don't be that person. Be authentically engaged with them. Ask about them, be curious about them, have a conversation, and understand, does this lengthen your sales process? Yes, it does. But remember, the goal isn't to provide a proposal. The goal is to establish a relationship that can lead to service down the road. And, you have to slow down to go fast. It is really what it comes down to.
And this is doing exactly what you said. It's establishing that relationship and also the authority in the space, because when it does come time for this company to host a training or a conference, you are the person that they think about. And for those who are brand new at providing services in your space, like the first company that I ever did work with, well, that's not true. The second company, the first one, I'll give a quick story. So the first company that I ever did work for, I really wanted to work with this company. It's iHeartMedia. And I really wanted to talk to their team. I've always been a fan of like Quinn and Cantera on the radio and stuff like that. So I reached out, I had a mutual connection and they connected me. And I delivered a training for them for free. And I went in and I gave a presentation. It was 45 minutes to an hour of my time, maybe 2 to 3 hours total with planning and drive time and all that stuff. And they called me back and they invited me back. And they actually paid me for the second one that I did. Yeah. And the second company I worked with, I also did it for free. I did a free consult, right? I built that relationship. I asked about them. And obviously, like, still looking back, I could have done much better following more of the principles we're talking about now. But I became known as that person who could come in and give that training to their team, to their new people, to go deeper into the content, to talk about new things. And they continue to call me back over and over for different trainings and different conferences. And then eventually it gets to the point where you have too many clients to continue doing it the free way, but you have to start somewhere. And start small, right? Start building these relationships now and become known in your space for what it is you do. Become known for how you are different, like you talked about, for how you are unique. But something that's very important that you said too, Bill, that is important to say, you made an offer, right? At the very end of that first conversation, if you found a place where you can add value for that team, you didn't just say, okay, that's really good to know. Like, you didn't just keep it in your head. You said, hey, I'm curious, would you be open to another conversation for how specifically I can help to get your team and you this specific result? Because this is what I do, and I'd love to help you do this. Are you open to that? That offer is very important, and you do have to make offers, but you've earned the right to make that offer after you spend an hour talking with someone about them and being genuinely curious about them and what they do.
Exactly. And the value that you provide, they recognize that and they're like, wow, if I've got this much and you're able to give that value and have that conversation on a peer level, they're like, yeah, this makes sense. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. Listen, you can't, Bob Berg quote, you can't push a rope. Right. So that's a great Bob Burr quote.
Oh yeah.
And it's based on the fact that you can't make it happen. You don't want to manipulate them or convince them that they have to meet with you. You want it to be a genuine result of the conversation that you have. And so then next time they want to get on the phone with you. They're looking forward to it. It's not like, oh, I got to meet with Bill McCormick. Oh, this is going to be, stab myself in the eye with a pen. No, they're like, oh yeah, wow, we get to talk to Bill today. We get to talk to Brandon today. I can't wait for that. And so there's more expectation. And then you can continue to layer on top of that. Quick story. Larry and I met with a bank last week, and I had done some LinkedIn training for one of their branch managers, and she had built us up so much to this VP that when we got on the phone, he's like, I've heard so much about you. Like she can't stop talking about you. I had to meet you guys. I've got to find out what's going on. And now he's doing the same thing to his person who is actually the director that's going to make a decision. Larry and I talked a little bit. This bank is one of its branches is in Schenectady, New York. Larry's grandparents moved to the Schenectady, New York area, and his uncle worked at GE. So there was that connection. Yeah. But once we got done talking about that, he just kept talking and telling us why there was this congruency and why it was so important. We didn't really say too much. And at the end, he was like, okay, so, we need to get a proposal. And I said, whoa, we're not ready to do that. I said, let's talk some more. We need to get some more people involved here and talk about how we might be able to help you further. Previously, I would have been, you want a proposal? You got it. Bye. Click. Let me get it out to you, because then it's more of a chance it's going to close. No, we've got to build it. We've got to build the trust with more people, because listen, we all know, the Challenger sale, I don't know how long ago it was, said 6.8 decision makers in most B2B buying decisions. It's probably almost doubled now. We're probably in the 10 to 12 range. Yeah. So you have to get consensus.
So let me ask you this,
more people involved,
just because I'm super curious about this unique situation. So you're talking with that decision maker. He's like, we got to get a proposal. You say, we're not ready for that yet. What are you then doing after that point before you send that proposal?
So he actually wasn't the main decision maker. His boss is. His idea was, let's get a proposal and get it to my boss. And I said, no, let's do so what we'll do is we'll do about a 30 to 35 minute complimentary virtual team meeting going over the trust equation with the other managers. And what we'll do is we'll make that very interactive. And we'll say to them, hey, how are you seeing this play out? How are you? So when we talk about authentic relationships, hey, so Brandon, so I'm just curious, how are you going about building authentic relationships with your clients? And so we'll get some ideas and we'll throw some stuff out. And at the end of that time, what we do is we set it, the main decision maker will be on that call. And we'll actually then have a meeting with them afterwards to say, tell us what your team got out of this.
Wow.
They're going to tell us why they need what we have. So, or they're going to say, yeah, it was okay. They don't see where this is applicable. Okay, great.
Yeah.
No worries. Do you need other industry specific training? Because we're really involved in the training community. We may be able to make an introduction for you for someone.
Yes.
You have to realize it's not always going to be a fit, So one of the greatest ways to build trust is to recommend the competition.
Yes. That's so powerful.
So realizing, like, I care so much about you and our relationship that I'm not going to make you do something that you shouldn't do. I'm going to find the right fit for you, because
still seeking to add value and to help out
all the way through.
Like the go-giver, one of the tenets is Bob Burke would be disappointed. I don't know the tenet, but the chapter talked about the main character, the salesperson, was below on his numbers, and he was wondering, oh, it's to give. It's give without expecting anything in return, and reciprocity. So the salesperson actually gave a client and an account to a different office and a different place entirely. And he called them and said, hey, I've got a perfect client for you. And a couple weeks later, that same guy called back and said, hey, I've got this account that I can't handle. And it was the biggest account that the main character had ever encountered. So that idea of referring to the competition might sound alien to some people listening, but it's the long-term game that matters the most.
Charlie Green in Trust-Based Selling tells us basically same story about a company that got referred business from a competitor because they couldn't handle it. The company that got the business went to the client to try to steal them away, and they're like, no, we're never going to move from them. They trusted us so much that they recommended you. We're never going to go away from them. So it's a great way to build trust. I know we're like running right up against the end of the time here.
Oh, I know, Bill. I told you I'd have you off at 10. So, yeah. Bill, I just want to say real quick, I've spoken to many sales experts, and this conversation here had the most actionable advice and practical wisdom that people can start using. So, Bill, I know that for those who want to go further with you and who want to meet you and learn more about you and what you do, I know that you're offering a complimentary 30-minute session with people to talk more about these principles and how they can apply it. And for those listening, there's a link in the comments or the description, wherever you're listening, to get on Bill's calendar and have a conversation with him. I know I'm going to be on there. I'm going to talk to you more, Bill, because I love everything you're doing. And frankly, I've learned a ton from you. I've taken a ton of notes here. So, Bill, I just wanted to thank you for joining us today on the broadcast. Thank you for your time. And thank you for all the actionables that you gave us today.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Brandon. Thanks to everyone that's watching, whether now or on replay. Don't remember, as you're out there and you're going about your LinkedIn and your social selling, remember to be better.
I love that. He's taking the tagline that I'm going to say at the end. So, Bill, again, thank you. Everyone listening, schedule a conversation with Bill, right? There's nothing on the line. You'll learn something and you'll make a new connection and a new friend. So, Bill, thank you again.
Great. Thanks so much, Brandon. Cheers.
I got 2 pages of notes, guys. Like the idea of going from the beginning of starting the relationship with someone on LinkedIn, or even if you're using email, cold call, anything, to moving them through the funnel, right? And really all that funnel is the building of the relationship with other human beings. And that leads to enrolling clients. Whether you are B2B, whether you're B2C, it's the same thing. We are working with other human beings. So I know you took something away from this. I'm going to rewatch this episode probably several times. I hope you replayed the parts that are most applicable for you. And if you did take something away, share this show with just one person who could use it the most, because you're the best part of the team. You're the reason that we've grown the way that we have. So thank you so much for watching and tuning in. And until we talk again next time, continue to be better.